He's going to talk to us a little bit about Dane County real estate, what is going on and where is it likely headed. Tom is a lifetime resident of Dane County with over 32 years of experience in the local real estate markets. Tom is the South Central Wisconsin Regional Manager for First Weber Inc. He previously serving as sales manager for First Weber offices around Madison for 26 years. Tom was the 2017 past president of the Realtors Association of South Central Wisconsin, served on its board of directors for 3 years, chaired and served on its professional standards committee for 19 years, serving as a mediator for 11 years, and chaired and serving on its orientation committee for 18 years. Tom's personal mantra is performance, not just promises. And I'm sure Jackie can speak to that. Tom?
Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of all this stuff so yeah, and then you can just advance the slides.
Oh, you're in the front row.
So you just click there.
Picture, look at that.
This one.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think it's really, I think it's last.
At least
Yeah.
You can also use these arrows.
Right.
2018.
that was when we like advertised it, we were gonna do like a club photo.
There it is.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all right.
Well, I took it.
Wow. All right. Let's see how I can run a PC today. I'm very, very thankful that you guys invite me in today. It's the first time I've put on a tie in 2 years, and I get to wear one of my Garcia Christmas ties, so that was super cool. I think this is the first time I've been on Zoom not in pajama pants in something like 20 months. So that was exciting. My wife knew something was up because I was fully dressed this morning, and she's like, "What is happening with you?" So. That said, I couldn't help but drop your, as I creeped your Facebook site, this picture hit me and I was surprised at how many people I knew in the picture. And I was like, what a fun group. This is going to be a fun time. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of what's going on in Dane County. I'm going to warn you, I'm kind of a closet data guy. So I'm going to try and make it as brief as I can to give some of you the data that you want. And for some of you data nerds in the very end, I've got a few charts for you. And Aaron L. has my whole slide deck. So if anybody is interested in any of the detailed information, looking through it later, feel free. Okay. All right, we'll jump right into it. So to start off, it's really where is Dane County right now? And a lot of people think from what we're hearing on the news media, a very different narrative than what's actually happening on the ground for those of us in the field. So trying to correct a few of those things that might surprise you at some of these numbers are a little bit lower than you'd think. Some of them are going to be pretty darn aggressive. Median list price right now in Dane County, my picture's sort of covering up for us here in the room, but we're right at 350,000. And that represents about a 29,000 increase over last year's November, or about 9.35%. Not as drastic as we've seen. We've seen in certain marketplaces throughout Dane County in the last 2 years, anywhere from 12 to 14% appreciation, which I don't have to tell this room is just not something that is you can continue to do year over year over year. So I'm very happy to see that number actually in around that 9 range. For those of you who've been in Dane County for a long time, you'll remember back to the early 90s for me, towards the start of my career through the early 2000s. It was nothing for us to have a 5 to 7% appreciation rate year over year over year in a very good economy. And we were quite strong. So seeing those numbers kind of temper back to norms, we're quite happy to actually see. Affordability is an issue. I heard somebody mention Habitat earlier. We get very involved in Habitat through First Weber, and really affordability is becoming a challenge for what we're used to in Dane County. But as you look around the country, we are extremely affordable yet comparative to other markets, especially as you move off towards the coast or Colorado. Right now, the median sales price is an interesting one. So looking at the sales price, you've got a 7.8% increase or $25,000 over what it was last year. So although that price is now at $350,000, we're really, roughly 10% ahead. Not a bad or unsustainable trajectory. I left the slides in and I wanted you to see these rather than just talking about them, so you could see where we're at in the whole process. If we look at our home sales, far left point of the graph in October of 19, just before we started heading into COVID. What might surprise a lot of you is looking at those home sales through 2020. We had the most robust year in real estate on record in Dane County during the COVID crisis and its beginning. We had a little tick back at the very front end for a couple of months, but it seemed that the consumers and the agents, everyone got a little comfortable with things and kind of this whole new world en masse by about May. And then we really saw things starting to take off.
Excuse me.
Yes.
The question, the numbers down the left side, is that number of homes for sale per month?
As you're looking at this, these are actually, homes for sale by a monthly
Okay,
basis.
all right, thank you.
And then the secondary line that's not quite as sharp, that's your 4-month moving average, to just sort of give you an idea of really where things are trending to. So as we look at inventory, this is the big crunch, right? We've got a lot of people looking for homes during this pandemic, but we're watching our inventory as we came into 2021. We all thought it was rough. You know, I had agents 3 and 4 years ago when we had 1,900 homes on the market and it dropped to about 1,300, 1,400 homes available throughout Dane County. And that would be multifamily, 4 units and below. That would also include condominiums. That was a really restricted market for us comparative to the prior 10 years. Those agents are really freaking out now because if you look at our numbers now, the edge of the chart there, it doesn't give you a data point, but we're just about 700 homes available throughout Dane County right now. So we are really operating on a low inventory, causing those overbids and pricing wars that you hear about, bidding wars on some of these properties. As you look at what's actually sold, welcome to the mountains, huh? Dane County's cyclical nature of the real estate market has held true really kind of through the pandemic. We saw a bit of a push as you look at those numbers. As I mentioned, that April, May, things really spiked. If I were to take this graph back over about a 10-year period of time, this is a monster spike in the overall graph. I'm trying to keep it just to the pandemic for you. Looking at this one, for our homes actually sold, we've got about 11.4% that we've actually dropped since last year this time. So it sounds like, oh my gosh, and you look at the chart and it looks like, wow, there's really not much out there. In our record year in Dane County real estate, we're only 10% behind in that inventory. And that really doesn't seem to be slowing things. And we'll see that in just a moment. Our average days on market, now that's gotten a little crazy. Average days on market pre-pandemic, right around 30. What happened as we went into January and the early part of the year? Yeah, it went up over 50. We had a little bit of a cyclical nature of the year. And then of course it just dropped out. And you can see we hovered right around that 30 mark all through the late spring market, through the fall market, and really coming into December. We saw a little spike, but now is the big drop. If you had anybody who was purchasing a home this spring, especially a first-time home buyer trying to buy under that median price of $350, it got crazy. It was not unusual for my agents to, a lot of people, I'll give you a quick, I went in to get my teeth cleaned and my hygienist says, wow, this is a great time to be in real estate. You must be having a ball. And I said, yeah, it's really a great time to be in real estate. I've never worked hard. And she said, but how's this sell within 5 minutes of going on the market? How is this harder? And I explained to her the idea of taking a buyer out, helping them find the right home for them, only to offer on it, not get it. And many of these first-time buyers, it was not unusual to be between 10 and 15 offers deep before they actually got a house. So I said to her, tell you what, I'm not going to pay you today. I want you to stop just before you're done cleaning my teeth. The next 4 people aren't going to pay you either. You can stop just short. But the 6th one who comes in, they're going to pay you today. She goes, oh my God, I hadn't realized that's what it's really like. And I said, that's kind of what our industry turned into. And it burned out a lot of people. That fight to get to those houses, I referred to it as, sorry for anybody here from McDonald's, but I was like, it's like running a McDonald's drive-up. right? A house comes on the market, you better be on that thing fast as you can with an incredibly aggressive offer. And we'll talk about what some of those offers really look like. Here's a crazy one. Sales price, list price to sales price ratio. Looking at this, we're at about 99.23% of asking price. For any of you who've been out there trying to purchase or sell any real estate, you'll go, how's it below 100, right? There actually is some negotiation going on. There's a little spottiness in the market. But as you see, unfortunately, my big mug is covering it for you guys here live. As you crest and you look into the April timeframe, we were actually well over 100% running from March to roughly about September this year. So it was a crush for these houses. And for those of you who own real estate in Dane County, it's been a wonderful time to have money involved in real estate. And I would expect that one of the questions is, oh yeah, great, but when's the crash coming? So I'm going to deal with that one before we open it up to questions. This is new homes on the market. I really don't like this graph. I like the actual data, but taking a look at it here, and I'm just going to catch up on my paper here quick. To give you an idea, new homes entering the market, November we had only 409. That fell by 188 compared to October. That sounds like, holy goodness, the sky is falling. But now compared to November of 2020, bless you, our best year ever in real estate, we're just down not even a full percentage point. So realistically, we're tracking with the best year ever in Dane County real estate for number of home sales. So it's looking quite good. Probably a little less confusing, and I had split this up into two graphs. This gives us our absorption rate information. So looking at November of 19, just a couple months before we kind of entered the mass and lockdown here in Dane County, we were at about 1.6 months of absorption, okay? What's a balanced market? Does anybody even know what a balanced market in real estate is? I'll give it to you. 6 months. 6 months is balance between buyer and seller, according to every economist out there. We haven't been anywhere near 6 months since the end of the recession. We kind of went right from about 8 months to about 3 at the speed of a rocket ship. It was unbelievable. As you look across, though, that absorption gives you an idea of how things went as we move through 2020. And you can see even during the height of our lockdowns and pandemic, we're still operating at the 1.3, 1.4 point. Welcome to the other side. We got out of the other side in November. Look at our December, 0.6. A half a month, basically, of inventory. For those of you who are dealing with supply chain problems to COVID, this is our realtor supply chain problem. This is our LA docs, that's for sure. So as you look down through it, you can see we've actually started to get back to almost pre-pandemic numbers. We're at about 1.1 right now. So that's a pretty reasonable spot for us to be in. I got to tell you, I never in my entire life thought I would use 1 month absorption rate and reasonable in the same sentence. But when you've been living in 0.6 land for a while, to be at 1.1, that's twice as much inventory. We're thrilled to have something to actually show people. And we're actually having a chance to set up showings and go look at properties with a buyer instead of run see it the day it comes on the market, no matter what day, what time. We can now actually maybe set up some showings and expect to have a house to show on a Saturday and show 2 or 3. So that's kind of a novelty for us right now in this market. Now, for you data freaks, here it all is. This is what actually was. This is all the data and tons of history to take you back to 2011. And this is all public information from our the Realtors Association of South Central Wisconsin's MLS system. All of this data sources from there. But as you look down through this, I think the interesting thing is in 446 new listings coming onto the market in the month of November this year. If we were to look at the condos or without condos, that drops to 349. Notice I didn't talk about price range. So when a buyer says, I want to go look at a house, we've got 349 coming onto the market this month. The problem is we're selling about 600. So you can imagine this isn't going in a great direction seemingly, but we are bringing on enough inventory to sort of keep us at that equilibrium, at least right now. Looking at it year to date, and that's our new sales at the very bottom here. 2021 is your first one, and new listings. Notice our sales are at 7932. Look at 2020, it was 7902. We're 30 transactions ahead at the end of November going into December. So everybody's predicting a better year than even our record year. And if you look back and you look through the line items there, you'll see that it's pretty significant how we clobbered the year. To give you our history, and this one I'm going to just focus mainly on the bottom one again, January through December, you'll see 2020. We had 8,800, almost 8,900 new listings come on the market, and our sales, 8,562. Take a look along, 8,100 basically was our best years in real estate. Back when I was board president, we were celebrating, woohoo, that's great. Here's the crazy part about Dane County and the nature of our employment bases. Take a look all the way down that column, that row, I should say, of sales. And you'll notice what's a bad year in real estate in Dane County? Well, coming out of the Great Recession, we had about 5,900. But on an average year, if we're on a check back sort of year, it might be 7,500, 7,800 homes. And our record years used to be 8,100. So no matter how good or bad it was actually very stable when you looked at the numbers. The big jump was that big jump that we had to 2020, where you basically went up to 8,600 almost, nearly 10% more than our other years. So that was the big sort of holy smokes coming down the pipe. So a few frequently asked questions that I would guess y'all might have. What's going to happen in 2022? If I could answer that question, I would not be in this room. I would be on television making a lot of money with me and my crystal ball. But what are we seeing? And if I were to give you some resources to pay attention to that are really good resources in this world of misinformation, there is Mark Epley at the Grass Camp here in the UW. He used to be at Marquette. He is an economist. Mark is one of my favorite economists to follow on what's going on in Wisconsin specifically, and he breaks it out by region, and periodically you'll actually see, if you look for him on YouTube, you'll see where he's done some realtor events, and we've actually posted his stuff out on YouTube, so anyone can take part. And the other is Dr. Lawrence Yoon. And Dr. Yoon actually has a direct line to the White House. He is the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. He's incredibly accurate on some of the trends of what's going on in the marketplace. And he'll also drill down to just specifically Wisconsin. If you YouTube that, you'll find some of Dr. Yoon speaking to realtors about what's going to be happening and his estimates of what will happen in 2022. That was, I think, the latest one is roughly May of this year. So about a half a year old. But looking at it, is there a bubble? Is there a correction? Are we going into, the big question I get from everyone, are we going back into 2007 again? I think the answer wholeheartedly from every indicator is absolutely not. I had someone the other day ask me, well, what about these prices? And they went up quick, and when are they going to check back? So I've lived in Madison my whole life. There's a unique thing right out our window there, Miss Forward, right? Pointing in the direction the city was going to grow, right? Wrong, right? Pointed exactly the wrong direction. But Madison really started its east and west markets as sort of a blue collar and a white collar neighborhood mentality and pricing standpoint. That pricing has remained in place my entire life. I've been around real estate. My father started our company, so I've been getting a paycheck since about '88, but before that, I lived through the 1980s and the 21% interest rates and what was going on. And guess what happened then? West Side homes didn't devalue any more than the East Side as a percentage. They kept that rationale. If I were to go take you out and look at inventory right now, it's about a 15% difference between East or West. I've never really figured out why. There's a lot of really great neighborhoods and high-end neighborhoods on the east side of Madison, but that has always been. So when someone asks me, is the bottom gonna fall out? My answer is, until we see something like the Great Recession that we lived through in the early 2000s, that 2008 time period, if we have a ton of job loss, all bets are off. But short of a ton of job loss, forcing people to have to sell, we're gonna see people that are buying at today's prices that simply are not going to be willing to sell at a lesser value. They are going to expect their home to appreciate. And in Dane County, because of our employment base and the government base, that is likely to continue. And we don't expect any major changes. Interest rates are always a question. Interest rates have moved up a little bit this year. They're all the way up to 3 1/8, 3 1/4, depending on the day you're at. Seems high, right? I've got a whole litany of buyers out there that they think that's on the high side. I remember my very first investment was a little bank you might have heard of called First Wisconsin. My father talked me into taking the money I earned and putting it into a CD. I'd never heard of a CD in my life. I was in about 6th grade. I had a CD at 7 1/8. When I bought my very first home for me in 1990, WIDA loans were at 10%. They had a new issuance at 9.5%. You had champagne if you got a 9.5% rate from WIDA at your closing. It was holy smokes. So do we have room to grow on the interest rates? The answer is yes. Again, the economists I mentioned earlier are all saying that, and they've been saying for the last 2 years, a healthy standpoint for a US economy can take about a 6.5% interest rate. And we need to get to a point where those that are lending money are actually making money. As we go into the inflation that's come from all of the money pumped into the economy during our crisis, we're now seeing inflation for the first time in a big way in several decades. Well, right now, if inflation is going up at nearly 6% or over, depending on who you're talking to, and you're getting a 3 1/4% interest rate on a mortgage, it's not only what I used to tell people, the money's basically free due to inflation. It's not only free, you're actually ahead by having money borrowed at this point. Not so good for the person loaning it to you, but pretty darn good if you've got the cash on hand to invest yourself. So I really don't see Dane County making any changes. If I were to make a estimate of what I really expect to see, we are really set to have a very similar spring to last year. I'm begging my staff and my agents to recharge their batteries because it's go time, really. And it's every year, it seems a little earlier that buyers come back into the market trying to outmaneuver the market. You know, they go, oh, I don't want to compete with all the buyers in March and April, so I'm going to come buy in February. The only problem is they all decide to do that. And so we just move the spring market each year back, seemingly earlier and earlier and earlier. So hang on to your shorts. It is going to get interesting in this first quarter of the year and will be very telling on the rest. I also am predicting that I really think in Dane County, we're going to see about a 1/4% interest rate hike over that period of time. I don't think that's going to have a negative effect on the markets. And I think it's actually going in a good direction that eventually our economy needs to go in anyway. I don't think there's a few out there that think that could be as much as 0.5% by next year. I'd be very, very surprised. They've been predicting interest rates rising for the last 4 years, and they've done very little at all. And so at some point it will happen, but we're pretty conservative in the Midwest. We have a low foreclosure rate. So our interest rates here are quite a bit better than you find elsewhere in the country. And I think we're going to see that maintain. We're really seeing high deposits, right? If you talk to those in the banking industry, we are actually finally, when I was young and in middle school, they said, learn to save like the Japanese. Why don't the Americans ever save money? Well, now we're reaching a point where we have more money on deposit and reserve than we've ever had. And I don't know if that's because people's habits have changed or we just can't find a way to go out and spend it. It's hard to say with everything going on in the pandemic. Some industry-wide changes that I think are worthwhile to at least bring up. And I got to make sure, so I should have brought out a clock to see the time.
You got 10 minutes.
Okay, we'll move it fast.
You're good.
Industry changes. We have Zillow. What in the world happened with Zillow and what may be next? Does anybody pay any attention to what happened to Zillow? They lost about $500,000, or I'm sorry, $500 million just a few weeks ago. That should gather a little attention, you would think, right? So Zillow, how did they lose that much money that quickly? And the answer is they believe their own algorithm, right? Has anybody looked up your Zestimate on your house? Half the time it's on the low end side where we could get you a whole lot more for it. Half the time it's a pipe dream high that we're like, you know, leave a Mercedes in the garage. Maybe we could get that price. It really can't. Well, they kind of shot themselves in the foot. They went in with what was called iBuying. What is iBuying? iBuying is something we did many years ago. We can't sell your house, we'll buy it from you. My father did that back in the late 80s when the market really took off again. Hey, if it doesn't sell, we'll buy it at this. Well, here was the thing. They would come in, you know, maybe 10% off of what we thought the full value was and buy your house, and you didn't have to pay any commissions, anything else. They reserved 6 of it to cover the commissions to sell it. It wasn't great, but it was reasonable. Now these iBuyers, we're seeing them coming in $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 below the perceived value of the house. And people are going online and clicking on that. I don't want to show my house during COVID. Maybe I'll just have you guys buy it. They have no idea at the rate the homes have gone up in value that that's a really low price. Well, here's the problem. Zillow was believing their incredibly high Zestimate. They were reducing off of that. They then bought 18,000 homes this fall in the US. They are sitting on 9,000 of them yet today. They are dumping them as quick as they can go. And article came out literally today. I was updating the slides today. So if you go and look, Inman News put this out this morning. 5 different things kind of going on with Zillow and how do they predict they're going to pivot and overcome some of those losses. They're worth so much that really isn't going to cripple them. But guess what their stock value did this year? High point when they announced they're going to go do iBuying, $200 a share. What do you think you can buy a Zillow share for today? I'll tell you, Zillow's put out $750 million buyback on their own stock. It's at 60. Wow. 60. They dropped 2/3 of their value in the market. So they are going to have to pivot, and we are going to see some of that coming here to Madison, I undoubtedly sometime soon. And some of those things that are out there, besides the iBuyer flop, they kind of ticked off the whole real estate industry. They bought a company that most of you have never heard of. It's called Showing Time. Showing Time is the software that sets up your showings on real estate for sale in the Madison market. It's what our MLS uses. Everyone got very scared. Wait a minute, Zillow's going to have all of our clients' data, right? Here's the thing. Selling your house is one thing. Having your information and what kind of home you are selling and what they can estimate off of that of your economic wealth and your buying habits based on your age, which they can get quite simply. And you don't realize it, but through public records, they can see what you took your last mortgage out for in your house. It is all out there and easy. So they're looking at selling that data. And they're trying to figure out where can they sell that data to. That was the concern by all the realtors. Maybe we don't want to use Showing Time anymore. They're doing something else with Showing Time with that purchase. They looked at Showing Time and they said 25% of all showings never actually get set up that were requested. And they think some of that has to do with new construction. And so they are actually venturing into, and this article gets into it for you, they're venturing into the idea of allowing a buyer to have an agentless showing. If the house is vacant, they will go in and potentially approve a showing. You have to give them your ID. You have to give them some other information so you can see where this is going. They're collecting an immense amount of data from you very quickly, government ID and all your contact information. And then they'll let you go walk through the house by yourself. I don't know about you, but I know a lot of insurers and builders who are going, I'm not letting anybody on that site.
Yeah.
That's too dangerous potentially. But that's an opportunity. It's also an opportunity for homes that maybe you vacated your home, already moved into your new home. That's an opportunity for them to do that. And so there's a couple other things that Zillow has been looking at that are gaining traction. One is the power buyers. And I'm going to give you a little definition on the power buyers in just a second. And then there's that agentless showing, and you'll notice I have REX real estate identified there. That's just one of them that's out there. There's a whole bunch of them out there that'll do it. But if we look at that, that gets really, really interesting. So I'm going to talk about that really fast. REX, how many of you like walking into a store and just using a kiosk to buy everything you want to buy? My wife is recovering from a surgery. She got a hankering for a McDonald's chicken sandwich. I came up to a drive-through. I've been to a McDonald's in forever. I drive up to the drive-through. It is 2 lanes and it is out the parking lot. So I decided to go inside. That's got to be faster. There wasn't a human there that would talk to me. They pointed at a kiosk. I was on the phone with one of my friends. By the time I got done ordering the kiosk, I could have sat through the lines outside. I was like, this was not efficient. Well, guess what we're going to sell real estate by? REX has been doing it since 2018 so far. You walk in and there's basically an iPad or a larger device, touch device, mounted to a kiosk in the house. You set up your showing, and once you give the qualifications information and all of your other data, including your government ID, they will let you go into the house by yourself.
Wow.
And it's listening to you. They use Alexa. That should be both nice because you can ask questions and someone's going to respond. You also have zero privacy in the house. Whatever you're talking about is probably being recorded.
Wow.
Interesting way to buy a house. And even more interesting, you touch on the screen they have there to get more information. They'll chat with you. They have an unlicensed person, an internal salesperson that is not a licensed real estate agent in that state, answer questions for you.
Oh my God.
And then they'll hook you up with somebody with a license to actually draft your offer eventually. They also offer an open house opportunity. That one they actually do have a licensed person in the house for. But it's not just robots running around Woodman's anymore. They're kind of showing up all over the place, and that ability to interact that way. This will just take you through what it's like to be a power buyer. So what's a power buyer? My brother just did this in Seattle, and I didn't give you any examples because there's a whole bunch of them out there and I don't even know who to promote. The one he used in Seattle is Seattle specific. They haven't actually tried to venture out of the state of Washington yet. But what do? They fund, it's basically venture capital to help you move. They fund you making a cash offer on a property. And you get a chance to move into the property and go through your financing process in the property. Pay them rent while you're living in it and pay them an upfront fee. It's scary how little it is. My brother bought a $1.5 million house, which really isn't all that much in Seattle, believe it or not. $1.5 million house cost him $900. They provided all the cash. After the home inspection, they had some major issues I had to kind of help talk him down on. He almost blew up the whole deal. I'm thinking, what were they going to do if they bought a $1.5 million house for him in an overbid in a market, and then suddenly he doesn't close? It became very interesting, very fast, and a lot of attorneys involved.
Wow.
It was getting really intense. So that's one way. And then the other way is as a home seller. They'll come in and give you a guaranteed buyout at the end of 180 days. Last bullet there, if you haven't sold your home, they'll buy it from you. I guarantee it won't be anywhere near the price you probably had it listed at. And you look at what they'll actually do. They'll help you buy the property you want to be in and then give you that time to sell your home. So we're starting to see more and more of this. And that's where I get a lot of people asking me, where are all these cash offers coming from? We haven't seen this yet here, but it's coming. I really think it's coming. Right now, we're doing cash offers through the bank of mom and dad. And sometimes the loan from the 401k. That one's a little sketchy. Most of them have a 90-day, you can loan yourself some, or I'm sorry, 60 days, you can loan yourself some money. But at the end of 60 days, guess what it is if you haven't paid it back? A distribution with all the taxes that come flying at you with that. So that's kind of a dangerous end of the game to play for some of these home buyers and sellers out there.
Plus a penalty if you're not of a certain age.
Yeah, it gets crazy. I mentioned the agentless showing in REX. I just stole this off their blog. I gave you the link to it if you care to go check it out. These are the markets they're in right now. They were in 9 markets before. They're now in 20 markets. Notice they're going into all high value marketplaces. But will we see this start trickling down? I think the answer is yes. I met with one of the a very, 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 very large national home builder that represents over 20 states that they build in, that I learned in September had bought over 100 lots in Dane County. So I think Madison and where we're at and how recession proof we are, it's not going to be long before we're on that sort of a list. So that's definitely coming our way. With that, questions on your mind?
I just had sort of an anecdotal underscore for some of the stuff you said today. We got new neighbors back in the spring, and they bought the house sight unseen. They moved from the East Coast, so they probably had a higher equity or property value out there, which put them in a good position locally. But that we saw people coming to see the house 2 days. So that idea of quick turnover, low inventory was definitely burn out there. We saw a bunch of people the first day, just a few people the second day, and I'm sure
welcome to McDonald's.
The offer had already been made that first day, you know, and so
that's why we're seeing those numbers of 10 days on the market through this whole time frame, where our norm was 30 previously as we went prior to the pandemic.
I'm sure
we're also seeing a lot of people buying big houses. All these young people who wanted to buy smaller houses and have a lower carbon footprint, and it's more environmentally sound in their mind. Yeah, well, when they all had to start doing Zoom meetings from home and can't find anywhere to get away from the spouse so they can do their own Zoom meeting, all of a sudden they all want different places. My wife and I have a house out in Sun Prairie. It's 2,800 square feet. We raised 5 kids there. There's 4 bedrooms. We don't need that kind of space for the 2 of us. Now we do. One of the guest rooms is her office for Zoom meetings. Another one is my office for Zoom meetings. So, I don't think we're ever going back in the office. My wife, because of a physical disability, has been offered the chance to work from home, and she took it. And I in my position, I'm covering 16 counties. I don't have a physical desk space anywhere but at home because I'm always out in the field. Yes, you have a question back.
Just wondered a couple trends. Have you seen, is there an increase or decrease in the average age or median age of people buying homes? And then do you think there's, second question, any effect from any of the new types of housing structures or ownership concepts of like home banking or other things like that that are affecting your inventory?
Sure. Why is our inventory disappearing so quickly? I think is largely because we had a lot of people moving in and being in a multi-generational family. We had a lot of young buyers who were watching what happened in the early 2000s to their parents' homes and equity. And unfortunately, a lot of them who went through a foreclosure process with their parents, they weren't jumping into home ownership like a lot of us in an older generation were, where we only saw positives. So we went into this pandemic with a lot of people in multi-generational housing, that just became a little too close for comfort. And a lot of these buyers now have 20%, 15% down. Many of them, we haven't been able to get the message out. They can buy at 5% down, but most of them are going to this 15 or 20% savings before they're trying to leave. And I think the pandemic really forced an issue that we already had, which was a pent-up buyer demand that was just sort of waiting to spring. And as we went into the pandemic, I think that was a lot of the driving force in those movements that we saw. We saw a lot more first-time homebuyer sales on the front end of last year, and then it sort of moved into the mid-range. This fall, early fall, we saw the typical sort of tail off in our market. And interestingly enough, homes over 500,000, really 600,000, were taken off. We had those were selling in days or two. I had an experience at an open house helping with one of our agents. 12:30 open house, first time the house is open this late fall. By 6 p.m. it was sold. It's over $1 million property. Literally was sold. We had a buyer who wanted to make an offer. We didn't even get told they were presenting offers. And it was gone. So that multi-generational sort of pushed some people out. And then we saw a lot of people very comfortable with upsizing their homes and their investments as they felt more secure in sort of this new environment that we're in. But our average home buyer right now used to be several years ago, first-time home buyer was 27, they're now 29. So it's moved 2 years, which doesn't sound like much, but it's a bunch. It's a bunch. Yes.
Could you say something about affordability of housing?
Yeah, affordability index, and sorry, I'm over time now. I'll go as long as you guys want to. Affordability index here in Dane County, if I were to extrapolate it all the way down, we're about 30% more affordable than you find through a ton of the rest of the Midwest and as you move out into the mountain states. And our incomes are very, very stable and pay is quite good. I mentioned talking to a national builder looking at moving into our marketplace. They were amazed at our price. They're going to be entering the marketplace at $500,000. They really thought, oh, I can go to Podunk, Madison, Wisconsin, and we can buy stuff cheap, and we'll be building $350,000, $400,000 houses. Now that they've done all of their homework, they're like, yeah, this isn't much cheaper than it is down around Chicago.
What kind of income do you need to buy the average house?
Average house right now, you can work it backwards based on your percentages, and I don't want to take anything away from the bankers, but probably the down and dirty way is you can't get over 50% of your income dedicated to your bills. So anything you're paying more than 6 months on, if we were to add that up, including your house payment and your principal and interest and taxes, you can't get over that 50% mark ever.
How does that translate into an annual income in relation to, say, the average house or a price below that? What kind of,
Our average household income on most of our buyers in that 300-ish to 350 range right now. They're usually averaging somewhere around $80,000 or $90,000 as a household income, and they're carrying that debt load.
Yep. I know most programs, like government programs, say anything over 30% of your income going toward housing is like I don't know what the word is they use, but
Yeah,
I don't remember but
well, back in the early 90s, it was 28% could go towards your housing total. Now with desktop underwriting, the credit scoring we're using with FICO scores, they're pushing that higher all the time.
Up to 45%.
Excuse me?
You can have your housing up to 45%,
Yes.
as long as you don't have any other debt of your gross income.
Wow.
Which, God help you if that's the case. I call that married to your house.
And
Married
if
to
you
your
want
house.
to do affordable housing, you could.
So I put up my information there. If you guys want to reach out, feel free. If you really want to see what's going on in the state of Wisconsin, I did put a Facebook business page link on here for you. I actually posted this morning as soon as I sent my slide deck to Aaron. The WRA came out with their numbers on the state of Wisconsin and what's going on statewide, which is a little lower, like a 240 is the median sale price right now. But if you'd like to see what's going on statewide, if you go on there, the very top post on that business page right now is that. It's a little YouTube video that Wisconsin Realtors puts out. So that'll give you more details. And if you have any other questions beyond this, feel free, reach out to me anytime. Obviously, I like talking about real estate. I'm kind of passionate. Thank you.
Great. I'm sure my screen, oh, maybe it's not shared already. All right, so reminder that we have no meeting next week, no meeting the week after, so have a wonderful holiday and New Year's, and we will see you at the victory party on Sunday the 9th of January, and then back here Monday the 10th of January, and our speaker then will be Dan.
Nate Procrast from the tournament director of the American Family Championship will be here on the 10th.
Cool.
Ooh, very cool. All right, so we'll see you in a couple weeks.
I'll let you know. I really